Hello everyone, this is John Galt, and we're going to be moving into another part of creating this multiplayer first-person shooter game. So we're going to be picking up exactly where we left off in the last video. And we're going to try to get the remainder of the animation of this character done. So we'll be implementing the jump animation and the third-person aim offset. And we'll probably go ahead and try to get sprint implemented, since that's going to be an animation change as well. So let me just make sure we are where we think we are, right? So we have this character that's moving around and all that coolness. I think we'll go ahead and do the jump first. So we're going to have to see, since this animation starter pack that we have in here, it comes with a different jump, right? So it comes with a complete jump, right? So it just plays this jump. But I like to do what's known as a jump loop, right? So you have a jump start, a in-air idle animation for the jump, and then you have a jump land animation. We could probably create those animations from these, but we're going to go ahead and do something a little different here, because I like to show people different methods. So we're going to do some animation blending. So what we're going to need to do here is we're going to create a default third-person template so that we can get the animations, the jump start, jump loop, and jump end animation out of there. So we'll go ahead and get that created here, and then we'll export them out of the engine. We could migrate them, but once again, I don't like migrating stuff because it tends to bring a bunch of stuff that I don't really want. So we're going to create a default third-person project here. Just like so. Okay, how about now? Okay, and then we're going to go into the mannequin animations, and we need the, let's see here. We need the, let's see, which one is this one? That's just jump. So we need the jump end, the jump loop, and the jump start. And we're going to right click and go to Asset Actions, Export, and we're just going to stick these on the desktop like so. And I think that's all we need out of here. So back in this project here, we're just going to import those animations from the desktop like this. And we will tell it to use the skeleton that we already have in this project. And we're going to say import all. And there they go. There they are. There's our animations that we're going to use to blend. Okay, so in the character's animation blueprint, in the anim graph, so we're going to go ahead and open the anim graph. Inside the locomotion, right here is where we're going to make that jump loop. So we're going to pull out of this, add a new state, and we're going to call this jump start. And then we'll pull out of that again, make another state called jump loop. And then we'll make another state called jump end, and then we will plug this back into the idle walk. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put in the animations that we're going to be using. So for the jump start, we're going to be using a node called layered blend per bone. And so those jump animations that we have are non-combat jump animations. So what we're going to do is we're going to blend the lower part of this character's body with the animations we got out of the animation third-person template. And then we're going to make the upper body of this character change from the non-combat animation to the idle rifle iron sights, so that when the character jumps, it will actually look like he has a weapon in his hand. So to do that, you select this layered blend per bone node, and over here underneath the config under layer setup, you can add a branch filter. This is essentially asking you which bone do you want to start blending from. And in this case, we're going to split him right at the upper and lower body. So this is going to be spine _01. And the blend depth, that's how many bones you want to spread the blend across. In this case, I believe we're just going to leave it at 0. And we also need to check this box here that says mesh space rotation blend. So we're going to go ahead and check that as well. And we can plug this in. And then all we need is the idle. And this is going to be the idle rifle iron sights. And this is going to be the upper body. The base pose on this is the lower body. The blend pose 0 will be the upper body. So we want the upper body to do rifle iron sights, and we want the lower body to do third person jump start. And we will plug that in. Now, another thing here is that we don't want this jump start animation to be a looping animation. So if we select it, we can uncheck this box here that says loop animation. We don't want that one to loop. Okay. And now what we can do is copy all this. So highlight it all and hit Control C to copy this. Then in the jump loop, we can go ahead and Control V to paste this in here. And the only thing that's going to be different here is this lower body. So this is going to be the third person jump loop. And if you just drag that in there and drop it over top of that animation, it will replace it. This one, we actually do need this one to loop. Okay. And then we go into the jump end and we can paste that in here again. Like this. And we need to replace the jump start with the jump end. And once again, this one we don't want this one to loop, and so we already have that set not to loop here. Okay, and now what we need to do is get the information that's going to allow this to transition from the idle walk blend space up to the jump start and down back. So to do that, we're going to go into the event graph, right? Remember, that's where we make variables to monitor. So what we need is to know whether or not the character is in the air or not. In other words, if he's in the air, obviously that means he's either falling or jumping. And either way, you would want it to do the animation for the jump. So to do that, if we pull out of the character master reference and we get the character movement, so that's going to be scroll all the way down to the bottom here, get character movement. So this is the movement component of the character, and from that we can check is falling. So there's a function built right into the engine that monitors whether or not the character is in the air, and so that's what we're going to use here to monitor whether he's in the air or not. And then we can right click this pin and promote this to a variable, and we can call this is falling. And I always put a question mark on my booleans. I don't know why. It doesn't much matter, but I do. Okay, and another thing that I would like to also know is whether or not the character's moving, right? So to do that, it's really pretty simple. We already have most of the logic here. All we need to know is if this value here is greater than float, if this value here is greater than 0, we're going to right click, promote this to a variable. And if that's greater than 0, well, then that means the character is moving. And we will use that. We'll just go ahead and put that one right here with these. Okay. And now we can go back into the event, to the anim graph in here where we're doing this. And in this transition rule right here, all we really need to know is the character falling. So if we get this variable that we created, if this is true, then that means the character needs to play the jump start animation. And to get to this one, from jump start into jump loop, what we're going to do is monitor the previous animation. So we're going to type ratio here, and what we want is the time remaining ratio for the idle rifle iron sights. And since we're using 2 animations in there, we also need the ratio, just type ratio, for the third person jump start. And if this is less than, float less than float, if this is less than 0.1, that means the animation is almost complete, is what that means. And we can take that and Control W to duplicate it. And we will also monitor this one. So if either of these happen to become true, we're going to do an OR here. So pull out of that and type OR. And we want this function here, OR. So if either of these become true, then we're going to transition out of the jump start animation and go into the jump loop animation. Then to get out of the jump loop, really the only thing we need to know is that we need to know the opposite of is falling. So get is falling, and then type not. Put this not in front of it. If the character is not falling, well, then he can transition into the jump land animation. And then to get out of this one, we need to know the ratio of the idle rifle iron sights, and we also need to know the ratio of the third person jump end animation. So don't try to copy paste these, because these are actually different animations. Okay, and this is going to be less than, float less than float, same value here, 0.1, and then we can duplicate this. And then we will also combine these with an OR. So if either of these happen to be true, we will transition back into the ground movement. Okay, so another way that you can test things inside here as you're doing this is if you go into the anim preview tab here, if you simply check is falling, you'll see that the character goes, and you can follow the trail of the animation around. So as long as the character is in the air, he's going to be playing this animation right here. And then when he lands, he'll go into that. So that right there is going to be what our jump kind of looks like. Okay, and so we can go test this out now. And if we jump, you can see that that is the jump. Okay, well, that's about as good as we're going to get it right now. I mean, I'm not necessarily thrilled with this. I mean, his arm flies up into the camera, but that might not be as bad when we are in full screen. But we may have to end up modifying some of these animations anyway. So I say this all the time. Let me go ahead and mention it again here. You either have to build your mechanics to match the assets that you're using, or you have to have custom assets to match the mechanics you're trying to make. So since we're trying to use all free assets here in this video series, we got to work with what we've got, right? So then that means there's probably going to be a lot of modification and stuff that we're going to end up having to make, and that's fine. We'll make them. But another thing that I want to mention here is to not get hung up in the details too early, right? Because we've got an entire game to build, which means we shouldn't be in here this early, spending weeks working on nothing but animations, right? We got to get something tangible working, and then we can come back and polish up things that we're not quite happy with, okay? A lot of people don't like to hear me say that, but guys, a game is a ginormous thing. And if you're spending weeks on things that you ain't even got a gun shooting yet, you're never going to get anywhere. So I always like to try to bash out these mechanics and get something tangible as quick as possible so that we can test more stuff, right? See, we can't test we haven't even done, as a matter of fact, we haven't even done the first thing that comes to multiplayer yet. But we're getting ready to. So what we're going to do next here on the agenda is we want that third person character. When we pivot our character up and down, we want that character that's being watched in that right screen there. We want him to pitch up and down too. So this is where we're going to create what's known as an aim offset. Okay. And once again, this video series was requested from scratch, so it's going to take us a while to get anywhere. This is why templates come in handy, particularly templates that I have for sale. But the problem with those things are, if you didn't build it, you don't really have much idea how it works. So this video series here is basically just teaching you guys how I made that multiplayer FPS template, and then we'll be adding things to it. If the funding continues, we'll be adding things to it that it's missing, like kill boards, leaderboards, various game modes, weapon selection. So I've got an idea about all the things that we're going to do here, but just it all depends on funding, guys. So we'll see what happens. Anywho, so inside the animation starter pack folder, we're going to create a new folder in here, and we're going to call this aim offset. Now, this animation starter pack comes with these two animations here called aim space. And if you open this up here, this is an animation that basically aims the character in all the directions. So we're going to be splitting this animation apart in order to make the animations that we need to create an aim offset. I wouldn't mess up the original animation. So what I like to do is take the original animation and make a copy. Don't move it, just make a copy of it here inside this aim offset folder. Then I duplicate this. Right, so I create a duplicate of this, and I call this Iron Sights CC for center. And then I open this animation, I pause it, and all we need is a single animation frame. That's all we need of the character pointing directly in the center. So you can see I scrubbed that animation to the beginning, and that character is sitting in the center. So then we delete out all the rest of the animation, right? So down here on the timeline, if you right click, you have an option here that says remove frame 3 through 87. We're going to keep right clicking down here on this timeline until we get it all the way down to it's nothing but a single frame of that animation. And now we're going to duplicate that original animation, the copy again. And we're going to call this one Iron Sight CD for center down. And we're going to do the same thing, right? So we're going to pause this animation and we want this character in the center pointing down, which will be right there. And you can just kind of rotate the character to the side and maybe rock the animation back and forth until he's about in the most down position. And this don't have to be 100% perfect. Then I'm going to scroll in on the notifies here, and I'm going to try to get that onto frame 20. Then I'm going to right click to the left of that red line down here on the timeline, and I'm going to say remove frames 0 through 19. Now you can see that when I did that, that character moved a little bit. So if you want to be extremely precise about this, scrub back in, and you want to delete the 0 frame, right? So remove frame 0 to 1. And now that character is pointed exactly straight down. Now we got to remove the rest of them. So right click to the right of that 0 and then remove 2 through 67. Right click again, remove frame 1 and 2. Just make sure that you have one single frame of the character pointing down. And then we're going to duplicate this yet again. And we're going to call this one Iron Sights CU for center up. And we're going to rinse and repeat, right? So pause the animation, get the character pointed straight up. Maybe rotate him out to the side here. That looks about like it. Then we scroll in here on the notifies bar. And maybe get him on that frame right there. Right click, remove frames 0 through 10. You can see the character moved a little bit. So once again, if you want to be precision accurate here, scroll back in here, scrub him forward. Right click, remove frame. Let's put it right there. Right click, remove frame 0 through 1. And now we got the character pointed straight up and down. Right click here, remove all the rest of the frames until we only have one frame of the character pointing straight up and down. Now, this is what's known as a mesh space additive animation. So we're going to open up this animation here, the Iron Sight CC, and right here underneath the additive settings, we're going to change this over to mesh space. Then for the base pose type, we're going to set this to selected animation frame. And this here, we're going to set to be the idle rifle iron sights. So idle rifle, not crouch. Make sure you don't get the crouch version. We want the normal idle rifle iron sights. And then we can save that. Now a shortcut, so we don't have to do every one of these, if we select the last two, right click, go into asset actions and go into this bulk edit via property matrix here, we can set these two to do the same exact thing, but we can do them two at a time here. So underneath the additive settings tab here on the right, we're going to change that over to mesh space. We're going to set this to be animation frame. And then we just need to hit this pick asset. And we need the idle rifle iron sights. Make sure you don't get the crouch. I've done that and sit there wondering why this stuff was broken. Make sure you get the normal idle rifle iron sights, not the crouch. Then come over here and hit File, Save. And now we're ready to create the aim offset. So it's kind of like a blend space, if you remember when we created the blend space. So we right click here, go underneath the animation, and we're going to create a aim offset. We're only going to create a one-dimensional aim offset. Okay, so the one that says 1D at the end. It'll be for this mannequin skeleton, and we're going to call this AO underscore iron sights. And then we open this asset, and for the additive settings, this is going to be using the same as the others, which will be the idle rifle iron sights. Make sure it ain't the crouch. And then all we have to do is drag in these animations that we created. Iron sight CC, put that one directly in the center. Then take center down, put that one to the left, and center up will go to the right. Now there is something that I forgot to do here, which is define our axis. So this horizontal axis here, this is going to be driven by the pitch of the character. And the pitch of the character is going to go from -90 to +90. And then we save it. And now as that variable, as the character's pitch changes, this is what the character will do. He will aim up and down. Okay? Okay. And let's do a save all here, just in case something decides to blow up. Okay, so now we go back to the animation blueprint, right? So you ought to see a pattern forming here. Anything that's got to do with the animation of the character happens in the animation blueprint. Okay, so we're going to open up the animation blueprint character master, and let's see, what should we do first? Let's go in the anim graph, and we're going to do something here that comes in handy. So I want to go ahead and show this. So we're going to hold down the Alt button, and we're going to unhook locomotion. Okay. Then out of the locomotion, we're going to type cache, and we're going to say create. This is going to create a new saved cache pose. And we're going to name this pose locomotion underscore base. Okay. So this is a way that you can cache a pose. So this is our basic ground movement and our jump. And now we've got that saved in a cache pose. Well, the reason that this is important is because then you can use it by typing cache, and you can say use cache pose locomotion base. And you can duplicate this as many times as you want and use it in as many different places as you need. Okay. So the aim offset of this character only needs to affect the upper body. So similarly to how we blended that jump animation together, we're going to do another layered blend per bone. We're going to select this, and remember, we're going to split him in the half again. So select the layered blend bone. Over here underneath the config, expand all these if they're not. We're going to add an array element, and we're going to split this at spine underscore 01, same as we did the other. And we're going to also check mesh space. And now we can plug in our locomotion base here. And this should get us working again. But now you can see that the upper body of the character is still in an A pose. This is where we're going to blend in the aim offset. So we're going to type AO, that asset that we created called aim offset. We're going to plug that into the blend 0. Remember, that's the upper body. Base pose will be the lower body. Blend pose 0 is the upper body. And really, all we need at this point is another copy of this. So this is the reason why I cached that. So we can take this and we can right click and type cache, use cache pose locomotion base. And we can plug that in here. And compile this and save it. And now when this value pitch changes, that's what we're going to use to change the aim offset. So see, if I was to hard punch in 90 here and then compile this, you'll see that the character is pitched up. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to have to create some logic in order to generate the pitch of this character. Okay. So let me go ahead and just set this back to 0. And we know where we do that, right? So in the event graph, we are going to have to create a rotator. And the rotation, let's see, it's been a while since I did this from scratch. So let me see if I can remember. So from our character reference here, we're going to pull out of this and we're going to type base aim. And there's a function in here called get base aim rotation. Okay. Then from that same character, we're also going to get the actor's rotation. So get actor rotation. And we're going to create a delta rotator between these two values. So if you right click and type delta, you can see that underneath the math rotator, there is a delta rotator. Now I might get these backwards, so we'll just have to see. But I'm going to plug get base aim into A and get actor rotation into B. And this creates a delta between the two. Then we can right click this return value, split it, and now we should have our roll, pitch, and yaw. To drive that, all we really need is the pitch. So I'm going to promote this to a variable and call this pitch. And then we can just plug this into our chain here. Once again, you could either add another pin to your sequence, or you could just chain these together. Whichever, you know what, actually, let's just add a pin, because I never do this, and my graphs start getting messy, and everybody gripes at me. So hold down Alt, and let's unhook this one, and we will double-click this to create a reroute node, and we can pull this back something like that. And now we don't have all of our lines crossing, and nobody gets to yell at me. So now in the anim graph, we now have a pitch variable that we can get here. And theoretically, if all's right, and I don't have this backwards, now when we play, you can see that when I pitch down, it pitches the character down, and when I pitch up, it pitches up. The problem is, and this is where we're going to have to split our animation into two. We're going to have one animation blueprint that is strictly for the third person only character, and the other animation blueprint is going to be specifically for the first person. See, because what happens here is on the screen we're looking at in first person view, it's doing the aim offset. And that's not what rotates our arms in first person view. It's just the camera rotating that does this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this animation blueprint here. We're going to right click and we're going to duplicate this. And we're going to call this FP. Let's call this ABP for animation blueprint. FP character. And then let's rename this one to TP character. Okay. And now let's open up the animation blueprint here. Or I mean the character blueprint, excuse me. And what we need to do is the arms. We're going to change this anim class here to be the ABP FP character. And let's compile that and save it. Now, I described already what the issue is and why this is happening, right? We're getting double the amount of rotation on the first person arms that than we should. So in the first person version of the animation blueprint, really in the anim graph, we just don't need an aim offset, right? So I'm going to take this and just bypass the aim offset. I'm just going to leave it in here for now. We might use that as an adjustment later on, but I'm just going to leave it unhooked, right? And so now, you know, this is, once again, this is a little bit more complex to do it this way because now you have two animation blueprints to deal with. So when you add something to one, you're likely going to have to add it to the other. But if they're mostly similar, you know, you can still just work with one animation blueprint. If you add something, well, instead of going and copying it into the other one, you could just duplicate the animation blueprint again and not have to recreate everything. But, you know, this is not going to be a very sophisticated animation system in here, so we'll just wing it in the meantime. We'll just wing it. Okay? All right, and now let's go ahead and spawn back in here. And now you can see that our first person view is not doing that double rotation again. It's doing what it's supposed to do. But if you look on the right-hand screen, you can see that now when I pitch this character, it's actually pitching on my screen and their screen. And if we hit Alt-Tab here, this will be the first thing that we had to make sure replicates. So now you can see that the pitch of this character, the way that we did it, it is also replicating, right? So we didn't have to do anything spectacular to get that to replicate, okay? All right. So I guess there's a couple other things that, you know, we might do to kind of clean this up a little bit. So this jump end animation here, you know what? I'm still absolutely positively not thrilled with this jump. I don't want to get stuck in the mud, so I want to fix that so bad that it's killing me, but it's going to require us to create a new animation. So I think we're just going to leave it for now, even though that's annoying. Let's go into one screen here and see if that's just completely intolerable. Yeah, it kind of is. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to, in the animation starter pack, where we put these third-person animations in here, I don't really know which one's causing it. It may just be the jump loop. Let me check here. Is it just the jump loop? I don't know. We might have to do them all, but let's get that dealt with because that's annoying. So let's take the third-person jump loop and let's duplicate this, right? When you're going to mess with animations, I really wouldn't do it to the original. Always duplicate it. And let's just call this FP jump loop. Okay? And let's open this up here. See how much movement's in this character here? We want that movement to be visible in the third person character, but for the first person, not so much because it's interfering with the camera and stuff. So let's delete all these animation frames out of this animation, right? So let's remove frame 1 through 21, right click again, remove frame 1 through 2, till we only got one animation frame, right? And let's save that. And now in our first person animation blueprint, let's go in here and change this animation, right? So go in the ABP first person, in the locomotion, in the jump loop, and let's change that to FP underscore jump loop. So let's pull this out here and let's change this. Get rid of this one. Compile that and save it. And let's see if that helped our situation any. Okay, so the jump start is going to have to be done the same way. I can't handle that, right? I literally can't handle that. So let's go to the third person jump start animation right here. And we're going to do the same thing, right? So let's duplicate this animation. Whoops, I almost didn't follow my own advice. Let's duplicate this. And let's call this FP jump start. And let's open this and delete all the frames, right? That's just way too much movement in this animation. Okay, remove all the frames down to there's just one. And let's save this. And then let's go back into the first person animation. See, this is one reason why it's kind of good to separate these animation blueprints. Some things may look okay for the third person, but they don't work out mechanically. They don't work out so well for the first person view. Well, splitting the character apart the way that we've built this, it gives you more flexibility to be able to go in there and you can modify the first person animations, but the third person animations you don't have to mess with, and they look okay, and they don't interfere with anything, where the first person, you know, you really got to have pretty static animations, right? So let's go into the jump start here, and let's type FP underscore jump start, and let's replace this one with that one. And compile that and save it, and let's see if that helped. Well, it's still moving pretty far. Maybe there's something else going on here. Well, since we're on this rabbit hole here, let's go ahead and do the jump end too. Let's see here. Third person jump end. Let's duplicate this. Call this FP jump end. And let's remove all the frames from this one as well. And let's save that. And we're probably going to have to do the idle too. So let's go in here and implement this. So jump end. Let's replace it with FP. Jump end. And let's see what we got. Probably same thing. Yep, it's still moving. I don't know how I solved this in my other project. I don't know. I imagine, let me think here. Those arms are coming way up, right? So it has to be because of this jump animation. Like, it has to be. But I'm just not sure what exactly it is. Like, we're using the idle rifle hip, but it's the, let me look at these animations again. I don't want to get stuck in the mud here debugging. It is because I guess it's because that character is so high up in the air. Well, it seems as though we're going to get stuck in the mud anyway. Because I don't know if I can be okay with that, but I don't remember for the life of me what I did in my other project to correct that. Let me go check something real quick here. So, if we check his falling here. The problem is the character moving up. Okay. All right, so we're fixing to break everything here, but let's see. If we take the FP jump start, take the so we only got one frame. It wouldn't be that. I was thinking that maybe we could just move the character down, but I don't think that's gonna make any difference. We did set all these to use bone depth and mesh. All right, so maybe if we spread that blend out across 3 bones, maybe that will make it not be as predominant here. So let's take all these layered blend per bones and set them to 3. Yeah, that still didn't change anything. Well, I guess we're just going to have to be okay with that. Right now, I've got some other animations, but you know, for you guys following these tutorials, these are animations that I created. So I tell you what, we're just going to leave it at that for now. Even though that's annoying, and it can be fixed, I just don't remember what it was. I'm going to have to go back and look at my modified animations and see if I can remember what I did in order to correct that. Because otherwise this video is going to be forever, right? We're going to be sitting here messing with this stuff forever. Actually, I think it just dawned on me. I think it just dawned on me. Okay, I think it's coming back to me here, guys. So, in the first person animation blueprint, the only thing that we're going to be seeing, see, the lower torso of this character is controlled by the third person animation blueprint. So look here. I know how we're going to fix this. We are going to only use the idle rifle iron sights here. So let's get rid of both of these, and we're only going to use this, the idle rifle iron sights, and this is going to be true in every single one of these animations for this first person jump. Right? So the only thing we're going to be using is idle rifle iron sights. Okay, now let's go modify our transition rules right here. So the only thing in here now is the idle rifle iron sights. So we can get rid of all this and only do this. See, your first person animation blueprint can be pretty simple because really, you don't need to, it doesn't need to be as visible as it does when you're looking at the full body mesh. So now when we jump, it shouldn't do anything, right? Oh. Okay, there is something else that we need to do here, but this is going to solve our problem. Okay, so let's go back in here and jump, and now you can see our arms aren't flinging up like that, but if we look down, see, we're still jumping. It's just that we removed all that movement from the first person view. Okay, but the problem is now we need a different idle animation. Okay, so back in the animation blueprint, it's a shame that we created all those animations for no reason. So let's go ahead and clean them out of here. FP underscore. We don't need any of these animations, so let's just go ahead and jettison these. And instead, what we need to do is take an idle, the idle rifle iron sights animation right here. Let's duplicate this off. And let's call this FP jump. Now we might come in here and change this a little bit to give it a little bit of motion, but for now I would rather have it mechanically sound as opposed to, all right, so let's cut this thing from about frame 44 through 190. Let's remove a lot of this motion out of here. So let's go to 30, remove 31 through 44. So that leaves us 30 frames here. Now let's go into the first person animation blueprint and let's replace all these with the FP jump animation that we just created. Okay, so let's put that in here. This is jump start. We do not want that to loop. In here, FP jump. We do want this one to loop. And then in the jump end, we do not want this one to loop. Okay. All right. So just give me a minute here, guys. This will be better in the long run. Trust me. We need this to be functionally correct. So now we got to change these rules. This is going to be ratio for FP jump, that new, and see, now we've got an animation that we can modify to make a legit first person jump. So let's delete this ratio and type ratio for the jump. I want this to be mechanically sound for you guys. I don't just want to jerry rig a bunch of stuff. So now let's see what happens. Okay. That'll work for now. That's better than the gun coming up in our face. And see, the bottom part of this character is still animated when we jump. It's just that we removed the animation from the arms, right? Because it was getting up in the screen. And now, see, it's still a little janky, but that's okay because we will correct that later in this series. If we really got to have a decent jump for first person, we'll come in here and modify this. But for now, I would rather it be a little derpy like that. See how it's taking it a second for the animation to change? I would rather it do that than it be all up in our face like it was. Okay? All right. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. because we dicked around a lot more than we probably should have. So I'm going to save everything here. Let me just go back into 2 screens real quick, just because I want to make sure that that jump's looking okay. So what do you see? Yeah, so see there, that looks okay. Yep, that looks fine to me. Okay, so we're going to call it here, guys. We didn't get the sprint put in, but we will get that put in. This character, I do want to make it where you can mash your left shift button and the character will be able to sprint, but we're only going to make it where he can sprint forward, forward left, and forward right. We're not going to be able to sprint straight to the left or straight to the right, and we're definitely not going to be able to sprint backwards, okay? That's just my personal preference, and that's how we're going to do it. You will be able to sprint forward, and forward left and forward right, but the rest of it, we're not going to do that. So with that, this is John Galt, and we will see you guys in the next video.